It's KYJ day. Today is the letter G for our KYJ series. The G's are going to be sweet. We're going to do glucose. See what I did there? So let's start with glucose. First G word. Glucose is fuel. It's the simple carbohydrate that your cells use and convert ultimately into ATP. Energy. Every cell has to make ATP from glucose. So that's our first G word. So how does the glucose get into the cell? Well, it gets into the cell through a special transporter protein in the cell membrane. And that transporter protein is called GLUT4. GLUT4 is the transporter protein. So the glucose comes in through the GLUT4 sort of window or doorway into every cell, and then it splits and it's broken in half. And that process is called glycolysis. So that's our second G word. Glycolysis is the breaking in half of glucose. Fundamentally, what happens there during glycolysis is glucose splits into 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. So our third G word is glycogen. Now, when glucose is taken to the liver actually packages glucose up in, think of it as a box, right? So if I gave you a Tim Tam and that was a glucose, you'd put it in a little packet and you'd make a Tim Tam packet, right? So a whole lot of Tim Tams joined together in one packet, that would be a Tim Tam packet. Well, a whole lot of glucose is joined together, that would be called glycogen. That's our third word, glycogen. And I'm going to link to glycogen the process of turning all of that glucose into glycogen. That's called glycogenolysis. Glycogenolysis, or the production of glycogen. So that's our third G. Did you see it was actually 2 G's, making it extra sweet for you? So let's say I wanted to make some glucose, but I didn't have carbohydrates to start with. So I couldn't convert starches into glucose or sugars into glucose. I needed some glucose to feed my cells, but I don't have any glucose. Well, I can make it. I can make it from protein or I can make it from fat. And that process is called gluconeogenesis. Literally means glucose, neo means new, and genesis is the creation of. So gluconeogenesis. That's the creation of new glucose from something that was never glucose in the first place, proteins and fats. Okay, for our next G, we're going to change gear. See what I did there? Gear, change gear, G. That joke. What about gallbladder? A lot of people know that we have a gallbladder, but what's it do? It's wrong to believe that the gallbladder makes bile. It doesn't. Your liver makes the bile. The gallbladder stores the bile and concentrates it. So if you had your gallbladder removed, the bile that your liver produces goes straight into the duodenum. It doesn't get stored. So you've got this gallbladder, it stores that bile, it concentrates that bile, and then when you eat food, particularly food that's fatty, there is an enzyme called cholecystokinases that's secreted from the stomach, cholecystokinases, secreted from the duodenum, and that stimulates the gallbladder to contract, to squeeze some of that concentrated bile down into the bowel so that you can start to digest some of the fat. Gallbladder. Don't get a stone in it. It's not comfortable. Remember colic from our day that we did the letter C? Not comfortable. What about gastritis? That's a good G word. Gastritis is, so gastric means stomach. So gastritis is inflammation of the stomach. A person gets gastritis when they've got maybe an infection in their stomach, a viral infection in their stomach, or a bacterial infection. Helicobacter pylori is one particular nasty bacteria that when it gets into the stomach can eat a little hole in your stomach, and that would be called an ulcer, a gastric ulcer. So gastritis, inflammation of the stomach. Not to be confused with gastroesophageal reflux disease. There's another G. GORD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. That's when Pepsin and stomach acid leaks up through the lower esophageal sphincter into the esophagus, and it causes irritation of the lining of the esophagus. Gastroesophageal reflux disease, that reflux of gastric juices. The stomach protects itself against those gastric juices with a mucus that it produces. But there's none of those cells that produce that protective mucus inside the esophagus. So should your stomach contents come up into your esophagus, there's nothing to protect the lining, and so it becomes inflamed. Gastroesophageal reflux disease. GORD. Oh my God. Well, I think that's enough G's for one day. I think we've covered way more than the 5 that I was supposed to cover. So hopefully this little quick one was helpful. Tomorrow we're doing H. So send me some little comments on the H's that you want me to cover. We'll see you tomorrow for the letter H in our Knowing Your Jargon alphabet series. See you later, guys. Bye.